Who feels on some level that money has played a part in how successful they feel, by show of hands, at some point in your life? My son Aston is 14. He just started his first job. He had his first shift last night at a local pizza shop. Helped him put his resume together, and I said, let's do a cover letter. He goes, cover letter? It just says to give your resume. I said, yeah, but you do a cover letter and you will stand out from the other 8, 14-year-olds, 15-year-olds that are just dropping in a resume. And I said to him, the other thing you do is you drop it off, you give it to them, and they didn't have anything going at that point. I said, but you go back in 2 weeks and you check in and ask. And so we did. And so the guy rang him on Wednesday or Tuesday and said, hey, Aston, I've got a trial shift coming up. And I remember you because you were the only person that came back in to follow up to see if there's anything still going. And he goes, oh, Daddy, that thing worked. I said, you know what I do, don't you, Aston, right? If I can't teach a business owner something really small like that, and he goes, oh, yeah. And I remember one time he was at the back of the room and he said to Katie, I think it was to Katie, he goes, I can't believe all these people are standing here listening to Daddy talk for so many hours. And I think you proceeded to say, maybe you need to listen more, Aston, too, I think, from memory. So the concept is it's part of identity. And I said to him, I had a car washing business when I was young, and I was earning, back then, $25 an hour. That's 36 years ago. Earning $25 an hour. I make $200 on a weekend. He's earning $12.55 an hour. I pay him to wash mine and Chloe's cars instead of paying somebody else now. The same equivalent cost to me, but I pay it to him. He's getting 4 times as much washing the cars. And I said, why don't you wash cars? He goes, oh. I said, so, he goes, yeah, but if I'm working, I'm earning the money. I said, well, you're doing that through the cars as well. We had this conversation the other day when he didn't have this job. I'm curious to see how he's going to perceive $12.55 an hour when he comes over next week and washes our cars and gets $100 for 2 hours. How that's going to play out, right? Because of this perception. And for him, the identity piece, I think, is actually that independence. And the money represents independence, not about how much it is. And I remember that when I started very young, doing some jobs and then starting the car wash and things, it was about the identity that helped me create. And that's very, very important. In the Money of Psychology book, actually, one of the things I took away was, where do these beliefs and things come from in relation to money and in relation to being able to create wealth in our lives? And it comes from a whole bunch of different places. Where do you think it might come from? Where are we influenced from when we're tiny? Up. Parents is a big one, yes. Where else? TV, school, cartoons? First bosses, absolutely. You've also got your age. You've got dogma, stigma. You've got cultural influences. In some cultures, money is more frowned upon. Religion, some religions, the same thing. There's all these different elements that come into it. Where I say age, the thing that I didn't realise is, think about that person who put $5,000 into Bitcoin, right, when it was first started. Because someone said, hey, this is a good idea, mate. And they're like, black or red? Yeah, I'll put the $5,000 in. Then it became worth $100 million or something. Was that a good investor? Or was that sheer ass? Now, how many times do you think that's happened with people that are out there as this amazing investor's done this and this and this and this, where it was purely based on timing and luck? Do you hear them saying, oh yes, this person got really, really well off and they're worth $1 billion, but it was all luck. It was just sheer ass. It just happened again in the right time. They go, oh no, this is this amazing business person. They're worth $1 billion. Like everyone looks up to them, Luck plays a part. Part of that luck is when you were born. Why? Because depending when you were born will depend on what era you've lived in, as in inflation, interest rates, employment opportunities, economic growth in economies and things. So if you're born, I think they said if they're born in like the 60s or 50s, sorry, went through this, lived in the 60s and 70s, they had very volatile interest rates and inflation as well. Basically, Australia technically didn't have a recession since 1991 till now. So if you're born in, say 1980, you've never experienced a time with super high interest rates, like ridiculously high interest rates, where it would have applied to you, would have impacted you directly, because that would have come a bit before you were old enough to have a home loan or something. But also, inflation's been low pretty much the entire time. So the opportunities are different, right? Someone who's born and it came into the marketplace when certain industries took off, like the .com stuff took off and people started investing in that and it all just went whoop before it collapsed. Things happen, right? Because there's timing. It's based on when that's happened. But also, it's also based on when in relation to the psychology that we've been taught by our parents. So if our parents were like, no, daddy's bad, always save or something, versus having parents that may be entrepreneurs, right? So you've been trained as similarly to them as an entrepreneur, that you can actually create your own destiny and create wealth for yourself and things like that, right? So there's this whole background around this.